guys, Sullivan here with a video on how I, a florist, do my planters. If you've watched any of my videos, I have my own take on gardening just in general, which is just putting things together that please me. Because if your garden doesn't please you, the person that's doing all the work, what is the point? How I do planters is a little bit different. I really approach them just like a floral arrangement. I actually approach everything in my garden like a floral arrangement. Sometimes floral arrangements that are going to take years to see in completion in the case of some of my flower beds. I still think about the same elements of like thriller, filler, spiller, which, I mean, I love a good rhyme. I love puns. I love, dad jokes for lack of a better way to describe it, but calling anything a thriller in a planter, it's just not something I would ever say. So maybe we can make up our own words for this, because I think with all the interesting gardening that's happening and so many people are spending time at home, it's a really good idea to start challenging some of the expected norms that go on. This is how my generation of floral designers that started 11, 12 years ago, we sort of came into the industry and started challenging some of the norms of what delivery work could look like, what sympathy work could look like, what you could do with flowers for weddings. And I think the same thing's going to happen in gardening. And so rather than following some pre-prescribed 4-plant recipe to fill your planters, name brand plants that need fertilizer every week, I would really encourage you to think about taking each of your containers and making a composition that just makes you happy. Because if it makes you happy, that's really the whole point. So we're going to start up at the cube planters, and then we'll go look at the front door planter installation. So do you guys remember how Sesame Street was brought to you by a letter or number of the day? Well, my whole life, I think of certain experiences being brought to you by a word of the day. And I've actually decided that my garden year is going to be described. The word of the year for my garden is progress, or if I'm allowed 2 words, in progress. Nothing is going to be finished this year. And so as per usual, we are less than camera ready, but I'm working on expanding this garden, and these are plants for the garden. But we're here to talk about planters. So my friend just dropped off some of these annuals that he had custom grown, and he works in container design and knew that I would love them. And that's, I guess, the nice thing about having very rigid taste about plants, flowers, and colors. It makes it pretty easy for people to give you plants that you're excited about. But as far as the containers go, the first thing I planted this year was anemones. You can see those are future anemone flowers buried in there. But it was really a challenge. It took me a couple weeks to gather up plants to fill these planters. Nemesia. This is Nemesia in a color called Tropical. Heuchera called, it's from the Kira series, Kira, Arizona. This is probably a big Delta Sunrise, a gum, Geum, in Tempo Rose. Actually, why am I telling you all the names of things? I'll put them up on the screen. But let's talk a little bit about the composition of a container in terms of the 3 categories of plants that you often find in container recipes. My detested word, the thriller, tends to be something that's very showy, attention grabbing. Spiller would be anything that spills forward. Filler are things that take up space in the container but aren't necessarily going to get tall or take a lot of attention. I'm not sure this is the right heuchera for a container. As you can see, it's growing very upright, but that's easy enough to move. The nemesia is, for now, the focal element. I would consider the pansies to be kind of a complementary filler type of element. And then rather than thinking about things as thriller or upright interest, I tend to think about foliage and upright texture. If you've ever watched any of the planter videos, I tend to design on a diagonal. So I mirror the planters and I try to make a low spot with my high spot being back at this corner. So this is an annual bright green millet grass. This is a sweet potato vine. This will grow upright. This will spill over. The nemesia, I think, will last a little while. I think when we have some flowers on the anemones, there'll be an interesting kind of focal element, but for now, I have the gum. And the euphorbia, while it's a flower, I'm really using it as kind of a drapey foliage. So words that I use in terms of floral arranging would be focal, filler, spray, and foliage. So those are all ways that I think of both cut flowers for arranging and plants. And so it's in that context that I design my planters. And I don't think you necessarily have to have every single element for a planter to feel balanced. Obviously, everything's a little low right now, but I think it's a pleasant mix of color and texture. I think the black and white anemone will be really, really striking, especially, it's one of my favorite combinations in the contrast of some of these purple to coral orange. And I also really love coral. I really love coral with purple, lavender purple colors. So we'll watch as these grow. Hopefully won't have to change out too much because many things are perennial. The heuchera, the euphorbia, the gum, those are able to be transferred into the landscape, and you can see I liked this tempo rose so much, I got more. If I see something that will work really well as a perennial accent to a container and it works with something that I've already planted, so much the better. So I had bought the Kira Arizona heuchera to work on this kind of heuchera tapestry I'm working on. And so I grabbed two, popped them into the container, and if they continue to grow so tall, I'll just pop them down there with their friends. And we'll come back and visit this bed. If you watch the live tour, we're removing the grass and extending the flower bed out to the walkway. So it's it's the plant shuffle. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get everything moved in spring, so it may be something that's moving throughout the rest of the year, but we'll come look at some of it because I have a lot of pretty plants for it. All right, so why yes, I do still have my Christmas wreath up because I think it looks pretty still, and it sort of ties some of the colors together. All right, so last year I got these planters and filled them mostly with things that I was trying to grow on while I was getting flower beds together. So this is, and then in September I got to have the fun experience of designing the whole palette from scratch. But this is the first spring that I've filled them all. And I'm pretty happy with how they're turning out, but again, things need to grow on. And then some things are perhaps an unusual choice. I was probably cleaning up the purus. So yeah, it's kind of a weird choice to put a purus shrub into a planter for just a couple months. planned to put some Pyrrhus into a shady bed and figured why not I got slightly smaller plants than to save a little money, and they can be happy in here for a month or two while I wait for something tall. So my ideal for these two specific planters would be some kind of 3 to 4 foot tall grass, but it's spring. Everything's short in spring. Things are waking up. They're just starting to get some sun. So things are not too tall. So the shrub was a solution for something with a little bit of height that can go in there temporarily while I wait for things to grow. As is my preference for kind of the European style of grouped containers, a lot of my containers are single varieties. I could only find a few of this Merlot euphorbia, so I threw a couple Rex begonias. I like Rex begonia more as a houseplant, so those will probably come inside once it gets a little hotter. And then I love epimedium. This is Pierre Purple. I have several, but one of them died over the winter, so I bought 2 for the containers, and I can plant these in. Same for this verbascum, the grass, and I overwintered a lot of my tulips in just large pots and decided to pull some out. These are supposed to be Belle Epoque, which is a very popular tulip, but I am not convinced. They feel rather pointy, small, and orange. But we'll see how the rest, there's another 100 of them somewhere, so we'll see how they go. I do have this really pretty gum. This one's, I think, Tequila Sunrise. I divided the plant in half. I broke the stalk. So I consider these pots, as well as the small round pots that are in front of the square planters, to be just like kind of accessories. If you think about them as a tablescape, they're kind of like bud vases or candles, things that just give you a little extra emphasis. So they should be things that complement the overall color scheme while making kind of a focal statement. As much as I do love the little purpley lavender on the epimedium, this foliage is so pretty. I thought the gum really tied together the potential for the tulip with the kind of purpley colors. This is plum smoky verbascum, and it's not like a super bright purple. Sweet potato vine. Actually may have to replace the sweet potato vines. It's still kind of cold. And I should say, I was out at nurseries buying some of these annuals, and they did tell me, don't put them out yet. It's still too cold for them. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine. But that's okay. So again, I'm thinking of something kind of upright and interesting. Think of things as foliage, something that will spill over. In floral arranging, a lot of times we call that breaking the line of the container. In a flower arrangement, if all the stems are sticking up from a container and you can kind of see into it, it sort of ruins the look. The tulips, I love tulips, whether they're cut or planted, because they just kind of do their own thing. I dug these out of the storage bucket, kind of planted them draping over the side, and they did that all on their own. And I'm just kind of thinking of layers. The grass, this is teeny tiny, toffee sedge grass. That will get a little taller, perhaps by the time the blooms flush off of the verbascum. There's a bunch of really cool little osteospermums out and about. This one is interesting. I think this one has like a cream and blue that sort of reminded me of the colors of this, so that should be blooming soon. It's really early for petunias, but This is a bicolor. Again, so hopefully you can see how the colors kind of, I guess in gardening they call it echoing, but in terms of arranging, we're trying to find colors that enhance the colors of the other things around them. So if I hadn't done such a warm foliage, then I would have probably needed to do not as warm of a tulip. I could have done like a purple or lavender based tulip. The Purus is getting ready to lose its flowers, but the new growth is this kind of bright burgundy. This is copper stock. This is some kind of trailing verbena. As everything grows, how they kind of work together. This is another Nemesia. This is one of the food named ones. Banana cherry, blueberry cherry, something. It's banana something. Then there's more anemones. I put some ranunculus in here. My husband really loves this grass, and I found it in little tiny pots for a very good price. So again, trying to balance perennials with some annuals and kind of thinking far ahead for where all these things are going to go when they are done. Lots of people ask where I got the planters from. They are from a company called Accent Decor out of Georgia. They are wholesale to the floral trade, but you're starting to see their products available more places. And almost all of these are from the Newport collection. They are fiber stone, so they're heavy, but not too heavy. So they're not all concrete. And I don't know what I would do for a spring wreath, so I'm gonna leave that guy up for a little while. Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to finish up this video by just sharing a few peeks from around the garden of things that are looking beautiful. I hope you try something different in your planters. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with a flower-loving friend. YouTube is my only source of income during this very long pandemic sabbatical, and so I do really appreciate the support. And I would really just keep encouraging everybody to break the rules, try some new things, and see what happens, because it's gardening. You don't know if you do something wrong until you try it and see what happens. And in my experience, lots of beautiful things come out of trying something new. So thank you again, and I'll see you soon. And here's some stuff to come in future tours, things that are looking pretty around the garden. All right, I'll see you soon.